All right, I see we got a few weathered the storm and come to see us. Let's stand up and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, somebody like to make a motion to approve our agenda for tonight?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Sandra. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Announcements? Do we have anything?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to request a closed session this evening if we may for property acquisition.
Okay, can we tie that in with this other one at the same time at the end?
Sure can.
Okay.
Yeah, but you'll need two separate,
Motions.
and if you do the property one first, I'll stay for
Okay,
that one.
all right, we'll do that now. Thank you, Sue. Make a note. All right, moving on to public comment. I've got Tammy Ross signed up tonight to speak about the parks and rec. Okay.
I'll follow up.
Okay, no problem.
Hey, I'm Tammy Ross. I live at 16 Schoolhouse Road. And I'm on the Parks and Recs Committee. So I wanted to talk about the possible programmer position for the budget. I know we've talked about this way in the past with the old council, and then I appreciate y'all discussing it as a possibility and all the questions that y'all have about this position. Our vision for this position is somebody would come in and probably start off part-time and maybe not be full-time, but the idea is not just the large events like Easter egg hunts, the Santa tour, something for Halloween, the big holidays throughout the year, which take an enormous, exorbitant amount of time to plan these things, building up to the day of, because you're talking donations and scheduling and getting volunteers. It is a big load of time. And I know the employees that do this put in a lot of time, not just their hours, but they end up putting a lot of hours that aren't necessarily on their time here. And but we would like to see programs throughout the year that are ongoing. Like I have friends all the time, and I know they don't come to council. And I know when I was a younger mom and had little kids, I never would have known who to go to or who to talk to, because I know I hear a lot about, well, they need to come to council and ask. They need to come to council and ask. And when I was 24 or 26 as a first-time mom, I didn't know who council was. I didn't know where council was. I didn't know how to contact council. I didn't know that was who to talk to. So that's a great theory. And I know that's the correct thing to do, but now I know. But then when I had little kids, I didn't know. So we try to educate the community and tell them that, but they don't always know who to talk to. So, but I talk to parents and I know what they like, and I hear what they like. And I know others hear what they like. And when I go to the schools and when I'm in the schools, they want to be able to go to a place and take their kids for activities, whether it be, learning about, coming in and learning about birds together, or doing group activities, whether it be art, or they could come and learn fishing together. Obviously we have tennis and pickleball, soccer, and obviously the sports is a given. easy thing to do, but there's a lot of things outside the box we could do. Yoga, even kids could do yoga, adults can do yoga. I have parents hounding me about doing yoga here in the mornings, in the evenings. A programmer could come up with lots of things and try things and poll the community, survey the community, and really see what they'd want to do. There's more activities and more centered activities, like if they use the building or even outside, like knitting. I hear, oh, if we could get together and knit. I know there's things the library does, but there's all kinds of activities that I'll be honest that I'm not a programmer, so I don't know all of the things they could do, but it just be ongoing throughout the year, even throughout the winter, that I think a programmer could schedule and put together, and even the programmer could find the people who facilitate these activities and to schedule. So they may not schedule every detail, but they would find the person that facilitates these things and say, come to us, we would love to have you here and for you to be a part of our community. And I remember having to drive to Hendersonville. I used to drive to Edneyville. I would drive to Etowah, and I did not enjoy doing those things when my kids were little. And I really wanted to get to know the people in my community and that my kids would go to school with when they would go to school, and not become best buddies with the kid that lived on the other side of town, because I did not want to drive to the other side of town and do play dates with the other kids. I want them to become best buds with the kids that they're going to be going to school with. And I wanted to become friends with those parents that were my neighbors and that we were going to build a community with. So that was important to me. So that's really what's most important about doing these events and doing programming here in Mills River at this park, is that you're going to draw the people that live close by. And no, we may not have 100 people or 50 people at one little event, but they will build and they will grow. Our community's growing, so they will grow. And I just think it really builds a sense of community. And I do think people will learn about it and hear about it as they get started and really be excited. And it will just be such a big bonus for our community, and they will really enjoy it. So that's what we're looking for. And I think that's what the community is looking for and what people have asked for. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You don't mind giving me a name for the record?
Yeah, I'm Tristan Cowie, and I am also on the board of Parks, Trails and Recreation Advisory Board. So, yeah, just wanted to echo a lot of what Tammy said. It's all about building community. This is a really beautiful area, beautiful land. If you think back to before the town was incorporated, it was, just kind of empty farmland and, some small buildings, small outcroppings. And over the years, it's kind of grown into what it is now. And, it's a place people can call home more so than what it was before. And there was a place that, there's people using the parks, there's people using the playgrounds, and having a programmer is going to be able to develop a lot of that infrastructure before it's needed. So, yeah, it's all about building community and kind of building more of a home and more of a center and having more stuff for people to do. So, and again, 95% of the respondents to that master plan survey asked for a programming position or anything else. Thanks.
Anyone else with any public comment would like to get up and speak?
Give me a minute.
Yeah, come on up.
That's short and sweet.
Give me your name, John.
John Case. Well, this planner is very needed. You've heard the expression, you can work a mule when it wants to, but you can work a horse to death. That's what you're doing with her over here. Because she's got construction, she's got planning, she's got tennis, high schools, everybody wanting to use the facility. And some of that load can be took off with a planter. And if it wasn't for Nicole and Patty, I probably wouldn't know where to go. But that planter is needed. So I don't guess there's anybody here that's been more recreation departments than me. I've been about 35 years full of them. I've been directors, I've been sponsors, I've been everything else, and know what it takes to get all these groups together where nobody's going crazy and won't go ballistic on you. So a planner is a good idea to get in here now.
Okay, thank you, John. Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll move on with an approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Thank you, Randy. Second,
I'll second it.
thank you, Sandra. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, on to our regular agenda. A, the North Carolina Department of Transportation right-of-way purchase agreement.
Mr. Mayor and Town Council, this evening in front of you, you have a offer to purchase land on behalf of the North Carolina Department of Transportation for the Highway 191 widening project, which is officially known as R2588B, which is the widening of the highway out in front of Town Hall here on Haywood Road. And there are three different values in front of you for consideration. There's the right of way, the permanent easements, and then rent for the temporary easements. If you look on the last page in your packet associated with this item, there is a map with a few different colors on it. Actually, on page 15. It looks like this if you're looking for it. And in that, on that drawing, you can see that the right of way, which is the property that they wish to buy from the town, is 0.286 acres. There is a yellowish orange color that is a temporary construction easement, 0.486 acres, and then a drainage utility easement at 0.018 acres. So in front of you this evening is off to purchase that for the price of $91,775. And your options are to accept that offer, make a counter offer, or we can table this until we have additional information. I'm happy to follow the board's direction on this one.
Have you already counter offered one time?
I have not.
Do we have any idea what any adjacent property is per acre price to be?
I have not looked recently. I believe there are some appraisals within this document, so.
Okay.
Yeah, there are a few.
So when you look at what we've got, you know, I think there's still a little bit of wiggle room. But sitting on the TAC and the MPO,
Mhm.
we need to be aware that funds are very, very, very short.
Mhm.
And things are getting cut very, very quick. And when I asked Lonnie and them, they
Mhm.
said at some point, you know, they'll just simply take the offer, put it in the bank for you. You
Mhm.
can get it whenever you're ready.
Mhm.
May not be as much negotiation as there once was because of the short fundage of money statewide. I'm sure some others have some discussion about this. I'd love to hear it. We'll go from there.
I read through it and obviously there's appraisal of 5 like properties and it ranges everything from where Amazon is now located to up here Mills River Crossing and the new storage units at the end of Old Haywood Road and a couple others. But nonetheless, the range, when you look through it, goes from the 70,000s per acre up to 135,000 per acre. And of course, they take an average of those five and came up with their multiplier. That's a long way of saying that I think the land value that they're offering is fair, as best I can tell. What I don't have a good handle on is the improvements that we'd lose at the end of this or at the entrance of this property. I don't know if the staff has any insight, or I'm not sure how they arrive at that number. I mean, like it's $54,000 is what they've assigned to it in this offer, but that's the only thing that I can't really ascertain if that's a fair price or not. Obviously, it's a large sum, but I don't know if it's large enough to replicate what we have out there already.
I don't know about the improvements. I don't know either. I think the land value at 75K an acre is low by at least $30,000 an acre. I didn't do the math. I don't know what that would change. It's obviously only purchasing 0.286 acres, but I think that second number of 75 is definitely low compared to others in Mills River.
And I guess you're assuming you're talking about other road frontage in Mill River?
Yeah.
Okay. Randy, Sandra?
Well, so the area in yellow here, Daniel, that's just going to be clarify again.
That's a temporary construction easement.
Right.
So that's the area that the contractor has rights to access throughout the course of the project. It could be for equipment storage, material storage. When they're on there actually doing work on our site, that's what that is for. It's basically a rent they're paying the town.
Right. So that's in the yellow there, that would take in part of the dog park fencing, you know.
Not quite. It doesn't go that far.
Almost. Okay.
Randy, I don't think.
All right. Well, I've never sold the DOT property, but I did have an experience where I rented them property for a temporary easement like this before. And I guess it's just a matter of how much you want to squeeze them, because they are open for negotiation. We certainly didn't take the first offer that they gave us, and well, they probably ended up paying more than what they should have, but I still cashed the check, so. It's up to y'all. Sandra probably had more experience with this than anybody sitting up here recently, so we'll hear from her.
Well, the question I would have is there going to be any elevation of the road going through there? And if so, the effect that would have on us and water runoff. And if they are doing road construction there, how will it affect people coming to the town parks and to the town hall and the library?
So the one part that I can answer that for certain is they have to maintain access to the park, so they can't block people from coming in. Now that might mean that there are some traffic control folks out there for a period of time. But we also have the Hooper Lane entrance, so there won't be any time where people cannot get to the park. It might be a little bit of inconvenience, but not completely prohibited. I can't speak to the elevation of the road. I just haven't looked at the plans closely enough to answer that.
Anything else? I would like to see you, and it's up to council, we could either counter offer as a group or simply tell them we're not exactly happy at this point and see what they come back with, or whatever negotiating methods y'all want to take. somebody thinks they've got a set number on what this land and disturbance of our property is worth, then they'll forward that. Spit it out and we'll negotiate that here and send it to them, or if you just want to go back. I do know, and Sandra, correct me if I'm wrong, they've got several different appraisers working this, correct? Like you may, each property ain't necessarily appraised by the same appraiser.
No, they hire their own independent appraisers. I do believe.
But there's not, it might not be the same one that looks at yours, look
No.
at this. Okay.
No, from what I've seen, they've not.
They have at least 5 different right-of-way agents working on this project. Can't speak for number of appraisers, but I know there are 5 different right-of-way agents.
Okay.
James, had you came up with a figure of per acre price in the neighborhood of what, 110?
Between 100 and 105.
Okay. Is that based on,
Very close proximity.
okay,
I don't think there's anything wrong with just going back with them with, we're not happy. Come again. Because I think if we give a number, they're going to counter the number.
I would suggest that approach. We go to them and say, "We appreciate the offer. We're interested in a little bit more. What can you do?"
Okay.
And then go from there.
So do you need that in a form of a motion, I would say? Or just consensus by the,
It never hurts.
anything else here before we move? Okay. So I would be looking for a motion to have Daniel, our town manager, the authority to send us back and tell them we're not exactly happy with our number at this point. See what they bring us back.
So moved.
They got a first, how about a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Any discussion? Any discussion?
you have any idea what it might cost for replacement of our sign and everything like that?
I don't think we've gone down that road, have we? Sign replacement costs. Yeah, we can come up with a rough estimate for your next meeting.
Especially nowadays, everything is very expensive.
Right.
They assigned a value of $10,000 and so, and that's why I said that. I think that's our best argument is the appraisal is the appraisal by a licensed appraiser. So but I think that concrete curbing is like $3,000 or less than that in their calculation. I'm not sure you can get the
No
amount
way
of
you can
concrete
replace
curbing
that.
for that. So
Yeah.
that's where I think, well, that's where I have my heartburn and I just don't know enough for the industry about signage, concrete curbing, asphalt, those type of things. If those prices or those estimates really get us back whole after the construction.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, we're moving on to B, a committee of reappointments. There's been a little discussion about the reappointment stuff here lately, so I guess we'll just start out with discussing it even more. So Sue, we've got 4 for the Park Trails and Rec up the end of June, correct?
Yes.
Well, if may, I'd just like to express my thanks to you, Mayor Gauntz, as well as this council and staff, because I just wanted this process to be a little more deliberate and not be in the consent agenda. And so now we've been notified more than a month ahead of time that will be upcoming vacancies. And then we've been alerted that the current committee members are seeking reappointment and we have their applications. And so we're well aware. So I just want to thank everyone for doing this because I have much better feel and I think we should, do our due diligence to make sure we have all the information for us before we do any reappointments like this.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other? What am I looking for? Applications for the rec board.
I do have some applications on file, and just for your information, there has been a resignation from the Park and Recreation Committee. And one also from the Planning Board, but that one is not effective until June 25th. But they are both being advertised, and it was our intent to bring those to you June 9th.
Okay.
With any applications I have. Honest,
Are we just?
with a lack of direction from council as to what you specifically wanted,
When you just give us.
this is what I brought you.
Yeah, and you'd give us those just a couple, 3 weeks ago, all the other. So moving forward with this, anybody want to make a motion to reappoint these four? It looks like their attendance has been pretty much spot on. John missed one. That wasn't excused. But knowing John, he might have been a little sick.
I would,
No, go ahead.
I think these are 4 solid members of the Parks Committee, and I would make the motion that we reappoint these 4 to the Parks Committee. And I want to say that I appreciate each and every one of them are here tonight. So
Exactly.
that speaks volumes.
And that would be a reappointment for their 2-year term ending June 30, 2024.
That would be.
Thank you.
I've got a motion, a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion?
I would like to thank them all for coming.
Okay, all right, all in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, we thank y'all very, very much. Laura, you having fun on there? Good, good, good. We appreciate each and every one of all our board members. Okay, moving on to C, the Ag Advisory Committee recommendation.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to defer to Mr. Cantrell in just a moment to help provide a little bit of background on this, but so the Agriculture Advisory Committee that serves this board also has an appointment on the Mills River Partnership Board. That was Mr. Cantrell. It was Mr. Young at one point on the Ag Advisory Committee. And with Mr. Cantrell joining council, Mr. Carlin going on to the Agriculture Advisory Board, the Ag Advisory Committee has made a recommendation to appoint a member to the Partnership Board. So with that, James, do you want to elaborate or did I cover that accurately?
Clear as it gets.
Okay. They are recommending I don't remember that answer. Mr. Carlin to serve on the Mills River Partnership Board.
And if you have any questions, Mr. Lumpkins is your Ag Advisory Committee Chair.
So anybody have any questions for Mr. Memphis today?
Did you guys vote on this at the last meeting last week?
Yes, sir. We voted on it and that was unanimous. And I just want to make a point, as I'm also the chair of the Mills River Partnership, that it's very important, I think, for the town of Mills River to have a good representation, keeping the agriculture character of our town in mind, and that we have with James on our Mills River Partnership Board and Mr. Carlin. So
Anybody want to make a motion to appoint? Are we making an appointment? Is that what we're asked to do here? Okay. An appointment of Wayne Carlin to this Millsboro Partnership Board. And is that a termed 2 year, 1 year? Do we know?
There is a term. I don't know what it is, but I know that when Mr. Carlin's term expired, as far as representing the town overall, Mr. Cantrell was appointed. Do you know what the term is?
I think it's 3 years.
It seemed like it was different. Yes.
Got it staggered.
There's someone else who keeps up with the committee
Okay.
and terms and who's on it.
I guess my question is, he coming in now midterm, or is he gonna be serving a full term from this point forward? How, that's what I'm trying to figure out here. How to word it.
I would say don't worry about the term.
Okay. Just to make the point.
My only question is, do we really have a say-so in this? It seems, I'm not sure. We have the chairman of the partnership here, the board, but really it's at their discretion who they want. And if it's, I mean, we defer to the ag committee is the way I understand ag advisory committee. So if they voted unanimous, it seems to me that it's a formality. I mean, I'd be glad to weigh in on it, but at this point, like I said, we're sort of a fly on the wall, and ag committee sort of takes the driver's seat on this.
Does staff have any information about that? That we might
Sure.
not know?
So the rationale is the town, the Ag Advisory Committee is a creature of this body and doesn't have authority like this body would to make appointments to other agencies. And so that's why we suggested that the board make a recommendation to this council, and the council make the official appointment on behalf of the Ag Committee, if that makes sense.
And if you're more comfortable, the motion could be worded that you're making a recommendation that he represent the Agricultural Advisory Committee on the partnership board, and we send it to them.
Sandra, you ready?
Yeah. I make a nomination that we appoint Wayne Carlin as a agricultural advisory committee to the Mills River Partnership Board.
And I got a first, how about a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, we're going on to our D ordinance 2022-09.
Mr. Mayor, this is, can best be described as a clerical error that we made in making a budget adjustment earlier in the year. And this is the official step we have to take to fix it.
I guess.
This was as a result of guidance from the state treasurer's office from in between the time when we made this took this action originally to where we are this evening.
So I had a question. Mr. King. So I guess we're talking about the same one here. So is this the one with the second page is $75,000 for the fire department?
Mhm.
The 18. So the $18,000 in community services. Can you explain what that is?
SUCAT.
That's just amending, that was the original budget on that line item. That's where we've written the check from. So that's the original budget, and it's being amended to 93,000.
So that, just so I'm straight, that was the 18,000 number is what we approved last year for nonprofits. Is that right?
That's right.
Yes.
And that's where the 18,000 is, right?
Mhm.
And the 75,000 was the money that was sent to the fire. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So they need a motion to approve this amendment. And everybody understands how we got here. They they had appropriated 18,000. Then this 75 that went to the fire department had to come back down in that line, and it added up to 93,000. So we're just correcting it that way. Yes. Someone will make me a motion to straighten that up.
I'll make the motion to approve this budget amendment. What do you want to call it? You
can
didn't
just
have a
say
number.
ordinance 2022-09.
2022-09. That work?
Yeah, then I'll fill in the details of the title and all that.
I need a second.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Right. Moving on to E, fiscal year 2022-23 budget discussion.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is a continuation of the conversations that we've had over the last couple of weeks regarding the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. I have a brief presentation kind of summarizing the changes that came out of the workshop on the 17th. And the board will allow me, I will run through that quickly. And then we can talk about any specifics the board may have. Any questions? Anything before I get started on this? You received in your packet a copy of the revised budget. And I will reference that momentarily, but I'll just start with this presentation. So as you remember, we've got a couple of key terms that we use with regards to budgeting. Fiscal year, which I failed to correct again, is actually from July 1 to June 30, not June 30 to July 1. That would be a very short year. And that's referred to as the fiscal year FY23. City, town, village, all the same thing. Fund balance is what's left after your assets minus your liabilities. The general fund is the town's operating account, and a penny of the existing property valuation is $148,814.33. So to date, we have completed the visioning session. The budget presentation was given on May 12th. We had a workshop last week, and this evening we are discussing it again. We will need to set a public hearing later this evening. We could do a special meeting with the next regular meeting, but that would be appropriate, would be June 23rd. And then the budget has to be adopted by July 1st, according to state law. So this is the same information I just showed you. April 30th is the first statutory deadline of the year. That's when departmental requests are due to the budget officer. The budget is to be presented to the board by June 1st of each year, and that was done on May 12th. May 17th, we had a work session. May 26th, this evening, we were reviewing it. And then on the 23rd is when we're requesting a public hearing be set. And then July 1st of each year is the deadline for adoption of the budget. And just a quick overview, property tax remains unchanged at 19 cents per $100 evaluation. We are estimating a 98% collection rate. The capital investment is $527,500. This is adjusted from the May 17th meeting. Cost of living adjustment is recommended at 7%, merit 3%, and then there's 1 penny again. So the overall budget modified from the May 17th discussion is $5,259,380. So quickly, before we get into the actual numbers, I wanted to touch on this slide. This basically shows, beginning from left to right, you see the approved budget for the current year that we are in. The next line over, FY22 amended, is as of April 30th, I believe. We made some amendments to the budget, and that's what's reflected in that column. The FY23 recommend is in that blue, or excuse me, green color. That's what was recommended to you on May 12th. Next column over, FY23 proposed is what is a result of the meeting on the 17th. And then the value change is the FY23 proposed minus the FY22 approved. And these columns will carry throughout the rest of the budget presentation as well as the document. So on the revenue side of things, again, the spreadsheet's been broadened a little bit to include a couple of more columns for the FY 23 proposed, as well as the percent of budget number, and then the FY 23 adopted. That will be filled in once the budget is actually adopted. And you'll see there at the bottom line, difference between the FY 23 recommend and proposed went from 5,627,600 to $5,259,380, for an increase over last year's budget of 6.77%. What has changed in revenue? The grant fund for the stairs, ADA ramp playground has it been increased because the capital investment cost was increased in the capital improvement plan of the full 300,000, as was originally outlined in the cost estimate. And then the appropriation of fund balance, the balance you see is reduced from 710,000 to 302,000, and that's a result of removing namely the parking lot from the capital improvement plan from the discussions on the 17th. Same information, just represented in a graphical form. You can see the fund balance appropriated is a little bit smaller piece of the pie than it was last time we saw this. Again, that's been reduced to cover the remaining capital projects that were listed. On the expenditure side of things, again, you'll see a difference between the recommendation and proposed as a result of smaller capital investment. There on the bottom, revenues are the same as expenditures. Again, same information, capital, the dare I say, Carolina blue on the upper left-hand corner is a little bit smaller piece of the pie than it was last time. And again, you saw this last time, but just a quick reminder, these numbers did change slightly. Comparison per dollar of revenue. So they've been adjusted for the smaller revenue numbers. So the council line item is 7 cents of a dollar, and then 18 cents for law enforcement and so forth. So I've only pulled out a couple of things that I thought were still left unfinished from last time. So first is council salary. There was a discussion about this last meeting. So I wanted to put this up for council's consideration. I have recommended that those numbers be increased from the current of $3,300 a year across the board to $6,500 for the mayor, $6,000 for the mayor pro tem, and $5,500 for each of the council members. So we can stop and discuss this now, or I can run through the rest of the presentation. Is there a preference of the board?
How many items you got like this, you think?
There's two more.
Let's go through them.
Okay. This is just clarifying, I know it's a little bit hard to read there. The community service line item in the administration department increased by about $25,000, and that's as a result of, again, of the meeting on the 17th, where the farm market was funded at its full request. The adjustments were made to the Interstate Partnership, AgHC, and the Mills River Partnership. Parks and Recreation, this is, nothing has changed here, but there were discussions about the programming position, so I've kept this in here for discussion purposes. And then the last change I wanted to point out is in the capital projects. The CIP has been modified to reflect the reprioritization of some of the projects, and there was a healthy amount of discussion at the last meeting about investing in this property before investing offsite into other properties. And so we move forward at the direction of council, the managed meadow, which is about a third of the way down that chart in the second column, FY23 at $55,000. And then further down below, you see the adjustment for the playground stairs. That was $250, it's now $300. Something that is new in this line, this column, is the UTV/golf cart at $15,000. We had planned to make that expenditure at a later date. However, for the current year that we are in, we had budgeted for a programmer and a replacement of one of the vehicles so that the existing Polaris UTV would be a backup machine. However, we hired a third maintenance position, so there is no backup machine right now. The Polaris and the golf cart and the John Deere are all being used daily. And the Polaris is as old as the park and is in need of continual maintenance investment. And we've been maintaining it basically to keep it safe. I think nothing other than that has really been maintained over the years. So it's had a good life. We would like to replace it with something a little bit more modern. And then nothing changed beyond that. The maintenance for the tennis course is still there, and then the registration software. Changes to the brand new Branch Park or Banner Farm Road property. You'll notice the parking lot was removed and pushed out to FY24, and it went from 500 to 600,000 because we had other projects further down the road that we merged to make improvements to that site. And then other projects that were like in FY24, for example, have been pushed out to FY25, 26, and so forth. The bottom of that table, you see 420 is the total balance of projects, with 180,000 coming from an appropriation of fund balance and 240,000 coming from that grant that I mentioned earlier for the stairs project. And that's all I have for changes. Next steps, we're here this evening, obviously. We do need to schedule a public hearing and post the budget on the website for public review. And again, a special meeting could be called for a public hearing, but your next regular meeting is far enough out that we could schedule for that date. And then the deadline for adoption is July 1st. And I should. Go ahead.
Any discussion on any of these numbers?
I got one question for Daniel
Yes.
real quick. On your very last page in this is the law enforcement cost breakdown.
Yes.
You have fiscal year 2020. Is that supposed to be for 23 or is this
It is.
historical?
This is as of this upcoming year. And in fact, I just met with Deputy Player today about this, and that's a typo that we found. So it will be updated in the final document. And I should be, it should be fair to that. The only remaining item I did not include was salaries for employees. That was discussed at the last meeting. There was a comment made about an increase in a bonus as opposed to increase in a merit as I had recommended. So I believe that was a 3% increase in the 5% merit, if I'm not mistaken. So that is certainly open for discussion at the board's pleasure.
This is pretty minor, but I just want to get it cleared up. When you go to the economic development portion of your budget that you
Yes.
proposed budget or the revised, it shows 16,000, and AgHC came to us asking for an increase from 15,000 to 16,500, which is what we discussed at the work session. Hence the
Oh,
3,500 that got redirected to the partnership. Nonetheless, since there's not a breakout in your development, or excuse me, your line item in the other portion of the budget, I just want to be certain that we're still on at 16,500 for AgHC, which was their ask.
yes, I will make that correction. Thank you.
I would like to hash out the parks programmer position. I'm gonna say that I have been persuaded heavily by some of my, well, first off, the Parks Committee, and second off, some of my wife's friends who come here all the time. We all have young kids, and it does seem like it's something that is definitely wanted and needed. But I would like to talk about it.
Anything else? No?
I've had a lot of people contact me and say that they would like to see more things going on in the park that are community oriented, such as they really like the ideas of movies in the park and, having social events down here where they could gather together and have socialization with people on a common ground.
I guess it's, so I voted against programmer's position last year and my mind has not been changed. I'm still can't wrap my head around Mills River needs a full-time parks programmer at this stage. I think in years to come, it probably will happen, but I just can't. At this time, I don't see it.
I would agree with the part-time. I did ask Daniel his opinion on hiring a part-time programmer, and that seems like that might be harder than a full-time. Am I speaking out of term?
No, I think that's right. It's a unique position unless we expanded their duties to go beyond just parks work. It'll be a little bit challenging. Yes, that was my answer. And I just thought of this as you said that, Councilman Austin, about the need for it. I think you're right that there's a difference between a need and a desire, and the town does not need a programmer. The town does not need a park. The town does not need a lot of different things, but the reason we got to this point is listening to the public and listening to what we got from the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So this is something new that the town will be offering. So I just want to be clear that there is a difference between a want and a need.
I understand that, but a question on that master plan was also how satisfied are you with your park? And it was overwhelmingly
Sure,
satisfied.
right.
So I guess we have to balance, like I said, our wants and our needs. I'm just in the camp of, I just don't see it at this time.
I'll just simply state that I think of the services that this town provides. Obviously, most important law enforcement and fire. Fortunately, most of us don't have to receive those services. So that being said, parks is really where folks are seeing their tax dollars at work in terms of town services. And so this park and its staff is the crown jewel, and therefore I'm supportive of the programmer enhancing and building upon what's already been started in the way of parks and recreation for this town.
So since we're handling these one-on-one, so we don't really need a motion for these, just consensus, or do you want it in a motion?
I think since at your special meeting, every time you made a change of any kind, you did
Take a motion.
you do it by motion. I think
Stay
also for
consistent.
clarity's sake for staff, I think it would be best to handle it by motion.
Fair enough.
So I want to throw this out there also.
Okay.
So if we have a parks planner position and they're doing classes, we have no space for that. The only room that we have available for that is this room that we're sitting in. So, and to my knowledge, there's not really any room to build another facility on the property we have now. So what's going to happen whenever you have a programmer and they have no space to do other than this room right here to do their programming or their arts and whatever that Nicole and the programmer comes up with?
I hope we exercise that agreement with Anderson County in use of their facilities, and whether it's at Marlowe or Mills River School or it's in the summertime or after school hours. But I think we should take advantage of that, and I'm sure we haven't, just because we're trying to keep all the balls up in the air right now. But maybe with programmer, we can get a return on some of our contributions to the county and the school system by the use of our new ball field.
And one other thing I'll add in that regard is a big part of this new role will be developing partnerships and relationships with other agencies. Certainly the school system, but there are community centers in town. Merlex certainly has space, or the church has space down there. So it's not just this space in particular, but certainly it's a consideration. I'm sorry, Sandra, I interrupted you.
No, you're fine. I was gonna say, we also have available to us a nice covered picnic shelter and another one coming in the great outdoors. I mean, you can do yoga outside.
And so at this point, we probably need a motion to approve or the budget for this programmer, or how would you probably want it deeper than that?
I don't think you need to do anything if you plan to leave the budget as is.
That's
It's already programmed.
I was going to suggest that they approve the addition of a new position.
That's fair.
How about our office space?
So
Where are you gonna put this programmer, Daniel?
we have an office open right now between the zoning administrator and the park director's office. Also included in your budget is investment in creating cubicle space in the break room we have over there. That would be shared, well, it would be used by either the zoning administrator or the parks department, or parks programmer, excuse me. So there are options for that. This would be counted for that.
If you want the new position, somebody make us a motion and we'll go from there. We'll call for a vote.
I'll move this council approve a park programmer position as detailed in the budget.
Second,
I'll second it.
any discussion before I call for the vote? Hearing none. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, so we got through that little dab, so we need to look at council pay. We're just supposed to get that hashed out. After the last meeting, I think everybody knows where I'm at on it. If you got any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
And I'll just say for the benefit of those watching or in the room that the council pay, since it was instituted, has not been adjusted. And as part of the pay study from 2019, that was one of the recommendations that came out of it, was to take a look at it. There weren't any recommendations for specific dollar amounts, because I think even some of your fellow council members could potentially share their own research into this, but it's across the board. You've got council people who earn nothing for their service, and you have people who earn a fairly healthy part-time salary plus benefits. So this is, I guess you could say, the manager's acknowledgement that workload for this position has increased, as well as gas prices. And I know that past council members have used this income to help offset their time to go to meetings, as well as pay for the gas to go to those meetings. And there are no benefits associated with serving on council.
Just for example, today I lost the whole day. Luckily it was raining, so I didn't feel so bad about it. Started out from 10 to 12 this morning with ethics training on a webinar. And then we're at 1 o'clock started the MPO meeting via Zoom, because I was supposed to be in Weaverville. So, and then I'm here at 6:30. So with me framing in Asheville, I was pretty much tied up all day at the house. Kind of puts a little bit in perspective. And for the ones that wasn't here for the special meeting, my beef is, and I was a big advocate for getting paid to start with, because I feel like it puts a little more professionalism in the situation. And I don't want this to be a rich guy's seat or a retired guy's seat. I think if younger people want to get involved and it pays enough for them to attend and miss a little work or whatever, I want them to have the ability to run for the open seats. And if they get elected, be able to fill them and not necessarily lose a lot of money by doing that. You know, when we first started, it was, every time I left work, I was losing everything. You know, and I was raising kids at that point in time, 16 years ago. And I don't want anybody else. I was lucky to be a self-employed person that made a little bit better than average. So I just don't want that to be the person that has to say it. I want it to be open to anybody. And I think the only professional way it can be that way is to have some kind of pay scale that fits the situation. And I will say that the time it takes to do it now versus the time it did when that first pay was advocated is tremendously a lot more. A lot more.
Well, I can say I've had several phone calls in regards to the last meeting in council pay. And most of what I've heard is that, they think the council, since we're all elected, should be paid the same. And, we didn't get in this for the money. Hopefully you get in this for caring for Mills River and for listening to people and being a voice for the people. And I do understand there's expense, there's sacrifice. And, it unfortunately, it does take away from your regular job if you're still working. And as far as people looking to come to fill the seat, I don't know that they would ever pay enough to make this a job worth taking if you do it for the pay. But as far as, doing the job, I hope it's always because of what's in your heart and for representation for the people of Mills River and to be the voice of Mills River. And that's just the consensus of what I've heard and how I feel too.
Next.
I was supposed to say, I haven't changed in the sense of both, I was uncomfortable with the amount of the raise, but I did also advocate at the last, or our work session, that I do differentiate my contribution to this town from the mayor and mayor pro tem. So I think that there needs to be pay compensation greater for those, because obviously I have no doubt the mayor spends much more time serving this town than I do, as well as the mayor pro tem. So I think I'm fully supportive of having the salary or the pay be reflected that way.
Grant?
Well, I'm to your point, Shannon. I don't want, this is for going future for the future, I think, because I don't want to see this turn into the only person that wants to run for this is somebody that's retired or somebody that has a living already made. To keep the younger generation engaged in this, I think that it needs to be offset with a few bucks. So so we're taking a $1.50 an hour job and turning it to a $2.50. So I'm comfortable.
I disagree with the saying that this to keep young people up here. I view myself as young. I did not do this for the money, and I think there's a long way, or there's a big difference in even what's proposed, and there's a economic threshold there between where I need to tell my boss I need to leave because I'm getting paid to come do this. With that being said, you were very passionate about it, and I don't think that this is big enough to boil over with. So as neutral as they come on this one.
Any more discussion? Somebody make a motion either or however you want to word it. We'll second after the vote.
Make a motion to approve this section of the budget as written, as proposed.
Second. Any discussion? Here none. All in favor? All right. Any opposed? Okay, so you got, did you hear him?
I have Councilmember Austin and Cantrell and yourself in favor. Mr. Young opposed, and I did not catch you. Yes.
So what's our other things we need to hash out for you tonight, Daniel?
The other thing that was discussed briefly at the workshop, salaries for person.
Okay.
I recommended 7%, which is almost in line with current inflation rates. And then Councilman Young has suggested 3%.
That's right.
I'll just explain the justification for the cost of living. Typically, well, I always look at the consumer price index when I make that recommendation each year. In years past, it's been as low as 1 or 2%, 1.5%. The last couple of years with the pandemic, it's been steadily increasing. And April, the latest numbers we have, it was at 8.3%. I used the numbers for the budget were generally developed in the month of March. So I went with 7% at that point, which was slightly below what the federal government had shown as inflation, but I felt like it was reasonable given the amount of money that it involved in the town's budget and where it is with inflation. Now, yes, this is unusually high compared to years past, and hopefully this will not be the case next year, and things will level off a little bit. A lot of jurisdictions in our neighborhood are doing similar numbers to these across the state. There are higher numbers, there are lower numbers. And moving forward, if inflation is at 0 or 1% next year, then the recommendation will be either a 0 or 1% cost of living adjustment. It is not, these do not carry over, they're not tied to 1 year over the next. And this is purely a reflection of, cost of a chicken wing is going up, and the dollar that it takes to pay for that is intended to match what that difference is. So that's the rationale. 3%.
So Daniel, if I ask you, with us adding a programmer's position and this type of increase in pay,
Mhm,
if inflation kept going as is,
mhm.
if we done this again next year, would it almost automatically force us to raise tax a penny, or have we looked that far ahead in this column yet to recognize what might happen there? Or
It is approximately, I believe, excluding new positions, an increase on existing personnel is approximately $50,000, if I'm not mistaken, which is about a third of a penny. I can double check that. In fact, I will before I give you a firm answer. It's an important number. I have my screen for just a moment. That's not, there's personal data that I don't really want to broadcast.
And the reason I ask it is I'm just trying to see, I don't foresee it slowing down next year either. So I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do, to prepare ourselves for that. Keep our budget in line. Sure, go ahead, what Daniel's working on. now.
Well, what I've been looking at and thinking about is I do like the 3% with the 5% bonus for this year and then reevaluate it next year. We are looking at adding some positions, and that will help the current employees, lighten their load some. And I think that will help make things better for them and take some of the stress off of them. And I think, that if we do the 3% with the 5% bonus and then reevaluate it at the end of the year, if inflation stays the way it is or the way it's going, then, we can reevaluate it in a year.
So what you're saying is if it did the same thing again next year, they would potentially get a 10 or 11% bonus, doubling the 5, to make up for inflation again, and then 3% merit, I guess. Is that
No,
no.
what I'm thinking is the 3% raise now and the 5% bonus. And then in a year, we reevaluate it. And if the economy is staying where it's going, we'll be adding, was it 3 employees or 4?
2.5.
2.5. Then we can reevaluate, and if we need to add to it, then we can. I'm not talking about doubling, anything.
I'm just trying to keep it balanced. I'm just trying to explain how I feel like it would have to do to keep it balanced if it done the same thing again next year.
Right.
Or would we give a big COLA and a bonus and a merit next year to get it back in?
If we need to, then we can evaluate it and assess it then.
The number that I referenced, again, excluding new positions, to give everyone the 7% cost of living plus a 3% merit is $49,179.16. And just to throw out another example, if you will, some jurisdictions, Transylvania County, I believe, does this. They'll approve a COLA. I'm going to use 7% is what I'm recommending, and they'll pay half of it beginning July 1st, and then they'll reassess 6 months down the road. And that way the money is programmed into the budget. It's just a matter of increasing the salaries if inflation has stayed the same or gone up. So that is another option if council would like to consider that.
But I feel like Transylvania County's doing that just in case it doubles or goes a third that doubles again in the next 6 months, correct? Not necessarily coming down.
I don't know the specifics of it, but I just know that at least this year they're looking at doing half of it now and then reserving half to be provided at a later date.
Okay.
So your cost of living increase that you suggest each and every year, Daniel, is basically based on whatever the inflation was in the previous year, right? So,
Well, it's compared to the 12-month prior.
Right.
Yes. That's how the percentage is
so I
calculated.
mean, if the inflation keeps like it's going, then we'll be sitting here next year having the same conversation about.
Well, and that's sort of my argument is that I don't want to lock us into recurring salary obligations that we may not have to if we return to some sort of normalcy pre this year inflationary rate that it goes back to 1.5%, 2.5%, 3%. Then like I said, we haven't locked ourselves in because at 10%, you double your salary in less than 8 years. We just can't have $50,000 positions turn into $100,000 positions, by the end of the decade. So I'm sensitive to that, and that's why I proposed a 3%, because if you look, and apologize, repeat myself in the work session, but if you looked at, pre-pandemic, during pandemic inflation rates, they were all 1-2%, touched on 3. So that's sort of a trend. And what we're currently now, it may be a trend, but we don't know because we're at the front end of it. So that's why it was my recommendation that we do 3% raise to, because that's indicative of the past and maybe the future, and then to make employees whole during this unusual time of high inflation rates is that 5%. So they'll realize an 8% increase in salary for this year. And then the 3 they keep in the next year. Again, if we're in double digit inflation or at 8%, then this council can take up then that do we want to go ahead and make it permanent, because that's the new normal is 8, 10, 12% inflation, or does it drop back down to 2? But I'd hate to see if for a spike that we obligate recurring funds of taxpayer dollars just to address a short-term spike. That's not a trend, because I just think that this is sort of the happy medium of that. Your employees aren't losing ground because they're going to have an 8% increase, which I think anybody will, especially taxpayers, will say that's a generous raise for a year, but it doesn't necessarily lock us into giving double-digit raises, especially when we don't know the economic future.
So the 5% bonus that's you're recommended would be just broken out and put into the regular pay and not just paid at one time, correct?
I hadn't visualized it being paid at one time.
One time.
Yes. But it would be taxed as any other pay.
Okay, but if it's on your total tax bill, then next year we give a 3% increase. Are we giving a 3% increase on their salary as is, or their total what they made this year? Because then effectively we're still giving the raise year after year.
But that's why the bonus isn't, it's not just semantic. That's an important term. The bonus is a bonus. It is not new additional compensation to their salary. So you'd be working on the current salary plus 3% in what I propose next year.
I'm gonna ask you a very important question that I would be able at my business to ask employees. Do you feel like, as the manager, if we do the bonus and the 3%, we would potentially lose anybody?
I'll answer it this way. There are all of our neighbors, and when I say neighbors, I mean folks like the county and Transylvania, Buncombe, Asheville, Fletcher. All of those folks are doing increases either near what I've recommended or more. Hendersonville has gone so far as to offer a sign-on bonus of $4,500 and a referral bonus as well. So everyone's sort of in the same boat, trying to be competitive with each other. I mean, I don't like to get into details of individuals in public sessions, but I will say that we have a very dedicated staff. We have a very strong benefits package. Everyone seems very happy in their responsibilities at the moment, but I'm not going to promise we will or we won't.
Okay. But what I read from that is that if we did lose somebody, we could potentially have to come back over the top with a signing bonus or something to replace them. Is that?
I think that's a fair statement. We would probably need to look at something like that to draw somebody in.
Any more discussion or a motion to move forward with someone's idea? Or leave it as is?
To your hypothetical, Mr. Mayor, I'd say that, obviously somebody making under what I propose, somebody making $50,000 now, 8%. So they'd make $54,000 this new fiscal year. And so that's 8% raise, no matter how you look at it. So, I mean, I don't think we'd lose them then if I was an employee or a staff member and I'd at least write out my 8% because that's a doggone good raise, no matter where you are and whenever it is. And then next year, it's like, if it's still, you got runaway inflation and costs are crazy, and then we're saying, well, we're gonna do 2% and nothing, and that's when I think you lose them. But I just want to make it painfully clear that, that it's 8% and it goes home in their paycheck, and it's for this upcoming fiscal year. And so like I said, that $4,000, if you earn $50,000, I mean, that's not chump change. That's more than a tank of gas or going out to dinner one night. So I don't think we're doing a disservice by doing that. I think we're being both mindful of the employees that they're getting 8% raise in these times, but also cognizant of our taxpayers and trying to be good stewards of their monies and not just, write these checks that we may not be able to cash later on. So
I deal with a little different professionals, but so when would you propose that they get the 5%?
that's start of the fiscal year.
Start of this year. So what would keep that person from quitting here and going and taking one of those $4,500 sign-up bonuses? or anything?
None whatsoever.
I can see where you're going with Jeff. But if we're gonna go that route, I would like for it to be broken down over the regular pay periods.
Have you thought about that, Amy Daniel, as to how you would handle that situation?
I mean,
If it
just
went
as,
that way,
just as Mr. Young has suggested, we would increase the salaries beginning July 1st, and then we would run a separate payroll for those one-time bonuses.
yeah, that's a quick with that.
I was gonna ask that same question.
Oh, okay. I got you. Okay. Well, back to, I'll take a motion either way, leave as is or more discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we amend the proposed budget to reflect a 3% salary raise for all staff. In addition, a 5% bonus.
So I'm gonna go ahead. So that's your motion.
Yes.
Second,
So
okay, any discussion? So we're just, on this particular year, we're just waiving merit and performance totally? Or is that 3 gonna be merit and performance?
Well, to me, for me personally, that's a separate discussion about merit pay and public service. That, I mean, raise is a raise, and I asked the question in another meeting to the town manager about who would be eligible for merit raises, and it wasn't really clear. It's kind of like if you showed up all year, you get a merit raise, and to me, that's not what a merit raise should be. And so I sort of look at those different, which is why in my proposal, in my current motion that's on the floor, is that cost of living, 5% bonus. But, merit to me is something that should really be dictated by certain performance measures that are met, and that, not everybody gets that. And so that's why I didn't lump it in there, because I have some other thoughts about merit pay, but nonetheless, 8% is what I'm hoping that this council will land on.
Any more discussion?
are you still firm with the one time at the first of the fiscal year?
No, I would amend that portion to either suit this council or if it makes it easier for payroll purposes, but
Would you be in favor of just an 8% raise?
Any more discussion? I've got a first, a second, no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So 3-2. Yeah. And Jeff is. No, Jeff is 4, Sandra's 4, correct me if I'm wrong, Randy's 4. And me and James is opposed.
And I understand, it was my motion. Is it the pleasure of this council to do to spread out over the entire fiscal year or do a one-time bonus payment?
I think
specify in my
that it'll
motion.
be handier to the employees to just go ahead and do it one time to help them get caught up on where they fell behind this past year. Fair enough. I think it'll help them more now. If they're behind on anything, they can jump back and get that caught up. If we did this again, I would, as a manager, I would direct staff to kind of be prepared that we might not be able to do this exactly like this again. So if, financially, we might look at spreading it out if we did it again. This has just been one of these crazy years where everybody's got behind if you're going to get behind.
All right, I run payroll and I'm trying to figure out how in the world I would do that. That's all.
Yeah.
I think it, a one-time bonus at the, not the first payroll in the month of July, but in, probably in between the two would be the
And I
most
just-
efficient way for us to
and
do
I
it.
just gotta ask, because someone probably asked me at the store in the morning,
Mhm.
will this 5% be, because we've never done this before, will this 5% be after the 3% is added on or prior to? Because I'm gonna get asked in public,
Yeah.
and I won't know how to answer. So
Uh,
we might need to figure that out tonight as well.
I mean, unless Mr. Young has a preference, I would suggest we adjust for the cost of living and then offer that 5%.
Those are just talking about a little bit. Then.
Yeah.
Council okay with that? Consensus? Okay. You good with that, Sue?
Yeah, yes, for employees' tax benefit, it's always better to do one separate payroll for a bonus.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, that's all that I had on the budget, unless there's any other questions. I can answer those.
Anybody got anything else before we move on to setting this public hearing for?
I'd just like to personally thank the town manager and the staff for the budget that came to us, because when you look at over $5 million worth of expenditures, we had lengthy discussions, but it was really just around the edges that what came to us didn't need much heavy lifting. It was just some massaging of some numbers. So it's a testament to the work and effort that went into it, as well as being attuned to where this council's at on a lot of things. So I just wanted to both thank and compliment the town manager and the staff for the budget that we got to work with, because it made our job much easier.
I will second that too, Jeff.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
I would like to also echo that with it. I've looked at many budgets in the last week, and yes, you did a very nice job putting it together. And for what it's worth, it's very aesthetically pleasing. And yeah, it's very nice, very well put together for all the other ones I looked at.
I appreciate that very much. And I was going to save this for when the budget's adopted, but since we're on this topic, I will say thank you to all of you for your input. Thank you to all of staff for the time, not only that they put into giving me numbers and things like that, but dealing with everybody else so I can put my head down and work on this, because it's a little bit of a lift to put this document together. And I do appreciate the comments on the look, because I did change it up this year to include more information. And Jeff, I really appreciate what you said about kind of working around the numbers, because we all collectively put in a lot of time and emphasis on calculating the numbers right the first time, and just kind of hitting the highlights. And so I appreciate the feedback and the discussion. I do think it was very productive budget discussions, probably some of the best I've ever been a part of. So thank you. Thank you.
And I would like to also add that thank you to the town staff and to the other council members and to the committees that put information into, and to every town employee, that we do appreciate all y'all do. And that's what helps make Mills River the place it is. And I do appreciate everybody.
Anything else? We're gonna move on to F, set this fiscal year 2022-23 budget.
Mhm.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we set public hearing for the 22-23 budget for June 23rd. 6:30.
Thank you. Second,
I'll second.
thank you, James. Any discussion? All in favor?
I do have some
Okay.
discussion. If we set this, does this include, everything for the, nonprofits?
Yes, it'll be, in yeah.
So
it'll be in-
everything that was discussed at your
That-
last meeting,
That
just
was, that's approved in the budget. Does that make sense? Because, to be fair, there was some that asked, it didn't get the exact number they asked.
Right.
But it's the ones that we approved in the last, that we had him adjust the numbers in there. So the farmer's
Okay,
market,
but the
all
other
that's in-
ones are still open. We can adjust them some if we need to.
well,
theoretically, you can adjust the numbers up until it's adopted, but the numbers that are in the budget document in front of you this evening reflect all the decisions that were made at the meeting on the 17th. And I believe that addressed all of the nonprofits. We talked about each one of them. So it was full funding of the farmer's market. It was increasing the partnership to from 5,000 to, or excuse me, from 6,000 to 9,500. The Henderson County Partnership for Economic Development at 20,000, 15,000 for operations, 5,000 for the EIF. Funding Ag HC at its full request at 16.5. The Blueberries Literacy Council did not set a firm number. They offered a range. And so I recommended 2,500, which is what council discussed last time. And then there's one more than
Merlac,
Merlac at 10,000. Smart Start Partnership was fully funded, as was the Housing Assistance Corporation.
does that answer your question?
It does. Could we, look at the Merlac again?
You wanna, so you wanna go back into the more budget discussion?
Yeah,
Okay.
is that a problem at this point?
Yeah, I'll need some help getting there, because I've got hang on, Randy might be able to help us.
First, we have a motion. on the floor.
Exactly, I've got a motion on the floor to approve. So we're still discussing. We got a first and a second, and we're in discussion. So you can. say
So
pretty much whatever you have to say.
Merlac requested $10,000
Mhm.
and they're in this budget is their full request.
Mhm.
So is that what you're at? We're not doing any of the ARPA money yet. So,
Okay, so that's separate.
yeah. that makes
Okay, then
sense.
I'm good.
That makes sense. Okay. All right, I got a first, a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none.
Just for your information, council, we will make the final tweaks to the budget that were caught this evening and publish it tomorrow for public review.
Whenever staff gets caught up, we'll hear from the finance director, town clerk, whenever she gets called up, no hurry. Those are 2 or 3 curveballs here. We're gonna take a 5-minute break.
I don't think I have a report.
Just a couple of things real quick. Just, I think you all know this, but just for the general public, that our building permit has been issued for the picnic shelter restroom going up at the north end of the basketball court. So probably that first full week in June, people will start seeing some movement happening and some ground moving. So we're excited about that. And again, the Hooper Lane parking lot is still closed. Please don't yell at me. It's DOT's fault. So, but yeah, just unfortunately, the weather this week was not very conducive for paving. So hopefully, once we get a little drier weather, they will be able to do that. We also have tennis lessons starting this week, which is a new program we're offering this summer. So we have 33 kids registered right now for tennis lessons and 9 foot folks registered for pickleball. So we're real excited. If anyone's interested in joining, that does start next week. And then just quick, tomorrow we are doing the blood drive in this room right here. So if anyone is interested in donating blood, that's from 11 to 4 tomorrow. There still are a few appointments. I would suggest making appointments, but they will take walk-ins as well. And then June 7th is also the next free food market down at the picnic shelter. So lots of fun things happening. Yeah, I went just a little bit before this meeting. It was getting high. I got a text from my ranger on duty and it's getting close. It hasn't spilled yet. So let's. Yeah, hopefully I would have liked to have a little more roots in the ground before we got our first big test, but hopefully everything will hold up well, and that's all I got.
I want to correct Nicole on that is not all that she had. We have a cowboy on staff we did not know we had. Yesterday, Mr. Johnston's cows came across into the park and Mike Miles, one of our rangers, was on the mower and corralled them for us. So we have some fantastic security footage. So other than that, I'll just give a quick update. We had the North Carolina National Guard as a program sponsored through the North Carolina Department of Information Technology, where they will come at no cost to towns and assess their network vulnerability. So they were in town this week and worked with our IT provider and spent all day Monday. There were 5 of them working basically from the moment they got here to the time they left, assessing our server, our network capability, our hardware, so on and so forth. So we should get a report from that in the coming weeks. And this is not related to the town, but I just think it's the information. If you are interested, Henderson County has uploaded the 2022 aerial photography to its online GIS system. So it's a very high resolution to see what's changed. It's pretty neat. So that's all I have. And then just a reminder, we have a couple of closed sessions coming up.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say the DOT's been working on 191 north coming down through there. And they're not quite finished yet, but what they've done has made a big, tremendous difference. The road is not flooding like it was. And you can drive down through there and not get drowned by the vehicles.
Last week at TAC, there's some talk, there's quite a few things that's having to be uncommitted through 2028. The amount of funds they got on some levels wouldn't make it past 2028 that was already out there to 2051. So it's crazy how much stuff it's basically getting chopped in half. So on the TAC level, we looked at swapping out, because believe it or not, the 2664 connector is uncommitted, not even a thought about. They're just dropped it totally. So the Henderson County TAC looked at swapping the Canoga project, which has a lot of issues with historical districts that they're going to have to get a lot of letters and approvals and resolutions to move through that section, and ain't even went through property acquisition. So the 26 connector is mostly at this point believed to fall inside of DOT's already acquired right of way. Potentially no property would have to be purchased for them to do that project, even though it's in an, how would you say it, an unplanned stage, but they do have renderings of what they would envision it looking like, but they hadn't went through the whole spiel to see if it'll actually fit on there. So Henderson County at a TAC level is moved forward with dropping the Canoga project and getting this back on the books somehow. I come out and just asked Chuck McGrady straight out if he felt like he could help us get support at a state level with this. He honestly said, I can't answer that. I don't know. The funds are so short. Even though we'd be trading out a bigger project for a slightly smaller project. He didn't know if that would work or not. But that is the hope and plans of the Harris County Traffic Advisory Committee to get 2664 interchange back in the making, because we're so afraid that when they do open this up in a couple of years, it's just going to be a deadlock when it goes from 3 lanes to 2 right there. And then one other thing today on an MPO level, after the federal money come down for the park and trails, it got raised to almost $23 million. And by motion, they approved 5 that was already in the plans, one being the D section of the Acoustic Trail. And it will go ahead and be funded on through the MPO to get, and I think that's from, correct me if you know the difference, I think it's from Battle Creek to the Transylvania County line, that section. So that will be funded at this level. And that's all I have. So with that being done, I would need a motion for us to go into closed session pursuant to land acquisition, so Sue can stay with us.
Looks like Mr. Austin might have had something he was going to say.
No, you don't. Okay.
So moved.
So we'll be having Daniel and Sue stay with us. Do we need Patty for this person? No, okay. All right, we ain't got a second.
I second that.
James second. All in favor?